Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. I make guitars out of my shop in Seattle, Washington. I also repair them, and today we're going to be working on Grandpa's acoustic guitar. This is part 2, just a little refresher of what we did last time. We diagnosed all of the problems with this guitar, starting with the action, which was very high. We discovered that the reason that action is high is because over the years, the soundboard has come loose, the bridge has lifted up, and the neck has tilted forward. Also, we're going to clean up the fretboard and replace all the frets with brand new frets. So when Grandpa gets this guitar back, it'll look shiny and new, and he'll be very happy with it. All right, now that we have all of the hardware taken off of the guitar, I'd like to give it a little cleaning. And we can use a couple of different solvents to achieve this goal. Today, I'm going to try either denatured alcohol, also known as stove fuel, and naphtha. Denatured alcohol is gentle on finishes. It will remove sticky stuff and grime. And the nice part is that it dries quickly. One of the nice things about wiping a guitar down with either denatured alcohol or naphtha, which is just lighter fluid, is that for a brief moment you can see what the instrument will look like when it's all finished. When the work is done and the finish is buffed to a shine, you can get an idea of what it's going to look like until the solvent evaporates and it turns back to normal. This serial number is just a sticker. I'd like to preserve that sticker, so I'm going to be careful around it. Now, I'd like to try naphtha on the fingerboard, just as an experiment. I don't think it's going to remove any of this paint, but I would like to see how it reacts. Nothing happened. Okay, now that we've done that, I would like to address the lifting soundboard, because not a whole lot else can be done while that is an issue. There is solid lining along the sides. In the previous video, I noted that there was no kerfing, but there is, to my pleasure, some solid lining, which is a good thing. All right, let's address the lifting soundboard. So to get the glue into this joint, we want to get it in as far as we can into the joint to achieve maximum adhesion and a long-lasting joint. And to do that, we're going to use Tight Bond 2. Also going to use a Dixie cup, tongue depressor, a Q-tip, a paintbrush, and a paper towel. I'm going to try to get both sides. Don't use too much air because it will just blow the glue totally off. Just enough to get it in there. So for the next part, we have a couple of different options. We can use the standard twisty all-thread luthier clamps. We can use regular Irwin clamps, or we can do what I'm gonna do, which is use this 12-ton press. It applies even pressure over everything, and also I'm gonna lay down some butcher paper because you do not want to glue the guitar to the pressure supports. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna push that, release the pressure a little bit. Okay. and push that in. So the whole thing, what you really don't want is huge drips going down the side, because that'll create more work later. And you, of course, run the risk of removing finish when you have dried tight bond on the side of an instrument. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with this joint. There's a decent amount of pressure on it, not too much, to where it will bend, crush, or warp the instrument. And I am excited for this. Okay. All we have to do now is wait. I'm going to wipe the inside of the instrument to get the squeeze out of the inside. Once again, I'm sticking my hand inside of this thing. My hand just barely fits inside this time. We're going to let this sit for 24 hours, and when we come back, we will address the next problem. We're back in the shop 24 hours later. Let's remove the guitar and see how our joint looks. Last night I did adjust it a little bit. I moved the paper because I wanted to make sure there was proper coverage on the paper. All right, pressure relieved. And here we go. Let's examine our joint. Okay, the joint looks nice and tight. There's no air gaps, so we use sufficient pressure. You can see that the bulge, which was previously, the bridge was lifting up, has been taken care of a little bit. It still needs addressing though, in my opinion. The soundboard is still twisting upwards, so there were two bolts in that bridge, and they were basically acting as levers against the soundboard at those two specific spots. And over time they caused it to lift up. And what I'd like to do is reverse that. So take it from lifting up to back down a little bit. And the way I intend to do that is using heat, pressure, and time. Now let's take a look, hypothetically, if we were to put the bridge back on right now, how much that would change the action height, or at least just what would it look like with strings on it. So placing the bridge back where it was, and in lieu of strings, I'll use the straight edge. I'm not going to measure this, but it is significantly lower than it was. However, a problem remains. Just look at the angle here when I set this down. If this were strings, you see that the bridge is still tilted forward from the back side. When I put a little pressure on it, it wants to go up. Ideally, we'd like the bulge in this soundboard to lift up so that the bridge was nice and parallel with the fretboard. All right, to give you an idea of how the soundboard has warped, I'll use this straight edge. The straight edge is bumped up right against the bottom of the fingerboard, and as I move it along, you can see that there is a significant gap between the ruler and the soundboard. The soundboard should be right up at the same height as the sides of the guitar. And as we move the ruler backwards, we see that it bulges out. It's especially prominent on the left-hand side. How I'd like to address that is by putting a block underneath this part and applying heat and pressure to this part, which will raise this while pushing this down. Okay, here's how I addressed this problem. I went to the miter saw with some scrap wood and I created a couple of posts that look just like this out of scrap wood. And I wedged one underneath the soundboard right about here, which will act as a leverage point for pushing the bridge back into place. So the theory is that if I apply heat and pressure to this part, it will push against the block, which is right down there, and the heat and pressure will push the bridge back into a little bit more of a normal place. When the wood cools down, it will hopefully stay in place. All right, so here comes the experimental part of the journey. We have the block placed inside of the instrument to provide a leverage point, a fulcrum point. I don't know if that's the right term. And then to apply pressure to the top, we're going to use the 12-ton press. Push down on a cork block, and on top of the cork block, there will be this piece of scrap mahogany. But below that, this is where it gets really fun. I'm going to put a heating pad. And the heat will hopefully soften the lignin in the wood enough for it to bend. And when the heat is turned off, hopefully the wood will stay in the position in which I placed it. All right, I didn't put much pressure on it. There's barely any pressure at all, actually. Yeah, that is a very tiny, slight amount of pressure. And this heat will be also very gentle. This is a heating pad for humans. And now the only way to see if this works is to wait. This could just be doing nothing. And even if it does actually do something, there's a chance it'll just spring right back into the position it was before. In this case, think of ourselves as explorers. Explorers of Luthery. Luthery explorers. We're blazing trails into uncharted territory to see if our dumb ideas work. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We shall see. All right, everyone, it is 24 hours later, and let me tell you, the last 24 hours have been torturous. I couldn't stop thinking about this thing. I will tell you that in the middle of the night, I came downstairs and I removed the heating pad. I lifted this just enough to get the heating pad out, and then I put it back down. And the idea there is that the heating pad itself would heat up the wood enough to bend it into shape, and then removing the heating pad would allow the wood to cool down and solidify into that new shape. That's the theory, anyway. I've never done this before, and this could turn out terribly. I purposely did not look at how it was coming along, if it worked at all. And so I have absolutely no idea how this is going to turn out. It could be disastrous, but you guys are going to be along for the ride. So, all right, let's do this thing. Oh, it's like a gender reveal party without the explosions. It looks like it worked. It's still a little bit concave, but it is definitely better than it was. I wasn't expecting that to work. I thought that could have gone terribly wrong. I'm extremely surprised. I thought I was going to destroy this thing. All right. Okay, I'm surprised. So previously, this part of the bridge right here, where these two holes are where the bolts, and those were bolts with nuts were attached, acting as a lever. They had lifted the bridge up like this, which had raised the soundboard up like that. It was a pretty noticeable hump there. And then this part of the bridge, or this part of the soundboard, had been pushed down. Now, it isn't a completely perfect fix, but it is much better. It's going to be better. It's going to be good enough to get the action back down to where it's supposed to be. And it also fixes that unsightly hump. Feels nice and stable. When I put this bridge back on, I'm not going to use the bolts again, because that will simply reintroduce the same exact problem that was there before. There is a little bit of a hump in the middle. Like I said, this isn't a perfect fix, and we want this to be a perfectly flat adhesion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hand plane. I don't know if I'll use this one or this one. Draw a line right here. Oh, a piece of it already came off. Yay. The knife did my job for me. That is legit. I'm happy with that. Okay, the next step, however, is not attaching the bridge. That was just preparation work. The next step will be cleaning up the fretboard. Well, look who came to visit. It's our neighborhood friend, Goldie. Okie dokie. So the next thing we're going to do is address the neck. This will be fun. We're going to look to see if the neck is bowed or cupped at all. Well, boy, that's real nice. It's perfectly straight all the way up the neck. Oh, that's good. I have applied 120 grit sandpaper to this flat bar. Ooh, that's beautiful. What kind of wood do you think that is? It kind of looks like mahogany to me. Beautiful mahogany neck. Very nice. Very nice. So there isn't a separate fingerboard glued to this instrument. The fingerboard and the neck itself are one single piece. And I should have mentioned this earlier. There is no truss rod in this instrument. No truss rod whatsoever. We're doing it old school. I would like to add fret dot markers to the instrument. Here are the 8mm abalone fret dot markers I will use. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So blump, blump, double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, the first step in doing fret dot marker inlays is to find ourselves a center line. There's the center of that fret. There's the center of that one. I'll mark the top, and then I'll mark the bottom. I will put a line connecting the two. So there's the center there, and the center there, the center there. We'll create a crosshairs. A crosshairs. And then I'll mark the center of these lines. Now I'll draw a straight line connecting this dot to that dot. There's a line that goes directly down the center. And then one right here. And then that. Cool. That is where our fret dot markers will go. Okay, our next step is to pick out 6 cool fret dots. We don't want to choose just any old fret dot. We want them to be nice fret dots. They will change in appearance once they are finished and sanded. Ooh, that one's really cool. That one's going in. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, yeah, that's a beautiful one. Oh, look at this one. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Oh, I like this one a lot. Looks like a mountain or a cloud. That's cool. That's going to be number 9. This one and this one. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to choose these for the 12th fret. Here's a sneak preview of what that's going to look like. Yeah, those are cool. Of course, all of that will be sanded away. Okay. This fretboard now has fret dot markers. Next, I will come back with my flat bar and I will sand the fret markers down. I'm going to squirt it with naphtha. That gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's finished. Before I apply the pore filler to the neck, I want to check the depth of the fret slots using this Stumac fret slot depth gauge. Yes, there is a tool for everything. For some reason, I've found that applying this stuff by hand works the best. This is grain filler. And the reason I'm applying it by hand is so that I can work it into the grain itself. And the next thing I'll do is I'll come through with this tool and I'll wipe the excess out of the fret slots themselves.